Okay, there you go, Professor.
Yes,
All right then.
everything is fine.
Yes, sir. Hello, folks. Welcome back. So this is an ongoing series of sessions we are doing here at AIU. This is like a series. So hopefully many of you are returning from the previous sessions. And even if you're not returning, the videos are recorded and available in your portal and so on. So my name is Jay. So just to give you a quick introduction. So this is my story there, right there on the screen for you. So I'm coding for a long time now, tutoring also for a while. I got a few Microsoft certifications as well. Again, you can just Google my name to know more about me. All my details are there, so you can check it out after the session. So today is session number 12. So we've been running through, we started all the way from the basics of JavaScript programming, and we've been putting the foundational knowledge of each and everything with a few AI dedicated sessions as well in the middle. So each session is a packed container, but each of them links to the previous session, and the next session is linked to this, and so on and so forth. So today I'm going to go into, in the previous session, I did explain why, for the training, for the purpose of these fundamentals, we have to choose a framework to build, to use our JavaScript fundamental knowledge to build a web app. So from now on, what I'll do is I'll be showing you piece by piece different parts of Angular project until you have like a proper Angular application ready to roll. So today we are jumping in directly. So there'll be some commands, there'll be some components. So as usual, I'll start with each slide. I'll tell you the different concepts, and at the end of the session, I'll show you a demo as well. So depending on the amount of time I have, I'll show you some commands as well. So we will do that. But as always, I have a one sheet document, which is like a summary nutshell of each and every session that we have done so far. So here, let me quickly go ahead and send that document to you. I'll send it again at the end of the session, because some folks, you're joining in the end, but others you're joining in the beginning. So let me quickly go ahead and share that one sheet document for you. So yes, there you go. Oh, hold on, Professor. It says I have to close the document before I can send it. 1 second. There we go. Right. Okay. Yes, okay. And that same file, I am going to, it's still uploading. Yes, there we go. Okay, Dr. Watson, could you confirm, sir, that you got that document I just sent?
Yes, I got it. JavaScript
Okay.
notes.
Yes, sir. So I'm opening the
Got
same
it.
file here on the screen. So first page, it's like a one sheet, like it says, it's a one sheet document, which is like a summary of all the things. All the basic things are on page number 1. Again, please go through it. And as you can see, it's updated before every session with what I'm teaching. So here, the main thing is, yes, there we go, folks. So session number 12, which is this one. This is what I'm doing in this session. And the key thing is, like each session, I'll add some extra notes as well, plus links to demo code. So you really want to hold on to this document. So when you're revising, when you watch this video again, please get this document. And for example, today, the example code is right here. I'll be showing you that example project. In fact, you know what? Let me do that right now. I already have it running here. There you go. Professor Watson, are you able to see the project on the screen, sir?
Yes, everything is very clear on my end.
Yes, Dr. Watson. So this is a simple demo project which I built for this session. So again, it's a Hello World project. With each session, I will be adding more and more things, making it more and more complex. But today, though, we're just setting it up. So it's a simple project with basic information, but it still has a lot of things going on. So let's look at all the things that are available here. So once again, the one sheet document, hold on to it. I'll share it again at the end of the session. Right then, so let's start with what is called as Angular CLI. Now, CLI is what we call the command line interface. So by now, many of you will be familiar with a lot of commands that we have to use when we are working with these programming frameworks. We are using the Angular framework, which means we will be using a CLI in order to generate or create a project. Now, you have to understand when it comes to web development, the primary editor that we use is going to be the VS Code editor. Now we already seen this before. So VS Code, Visual Studio Code, is the editor that we have been using for all the sessions till now, extensions and all that. So by now you're familiar with it. So hopefully you already have it, you're already familiar with using it and so on. So what we really do is whenever we want to do something with Angular, we go ahead and use the Angular CLI, which is command line interface, to run different commands to generate the project. Now, there are some key features here. I'll quickly go through it line by line and explain to you what it means. It will become a little technical, but we can't really escape the technicality now because we have come a little bit ahead from the fundamentals. So this is where we have to kind of get things a little bit complex. So the version I am using for this session and in the next few sessions as well is Angular 16. So in software development, I've talked about this before as well. So we have these different versions. Like for example, if you look at Windows, we are right now. If I go here and if I go here, and if I say this AC, and if I go to properties, obviously I can see that I am using yeah, there you go. So I'm using Windows 11. So it's software. You always have these version numbers, which decides what kind of features you can expect, and so on and so forth. So similarly, we in the series of sessions will be using Angular 16. So Angular 16 provides, it says latest, but latest for Angular. But right now, the most recent version is Angular 19. So you will be thinking, okay, if 19 is the most recent, why are we using 16? Now that is something which I do want to touch upon because so I am also use Angular in other classes as well, and this question comes up a lot. So the thing is, there is such a thing called as passage of time when it comes to software development. So when you have versions, different versions of libraries and so on, the latest version sounds cool, like you want to use the latest version, but in reality, in software development, we are always looking for what is called as community support. We are also looking for what is called like code maturity. We are looking for tutorials and also assistance from AI. So which means, so Angular 19 is like, I think it was released about say 6 months ago. So which means it's only been in the industry for 6 months, and it's only been used by very few developers, which means there are very less documentation about it, very less people are using it, which also means the AI will also know very less about it. However, Angular 16, it's at least 2 to 3 years old, which means it's being used for many years. It would have hit some kind of maturity in terms of bug fixes and updates and everything, and a lot of people are using it, a lot of example projects, demo projects on GitHub, and a lot of discussions and forums and things like that. So when it comes to software development, we usually kind of settle down on the most recent, kind of like the mature version. The same thing we talk about .NET, for example. So I do .NET development, which is the Microsoft framework. So like the latest right now is .NET 9, but not majority, all the projects we work on are actually .NET 8, because that is the one which has hit like a maturity in terms of bug fixes and updates and community support and learning support, and also like example projects and AI support and all that. So there you go. Like after this session, you go on and you start thinking, okay, like for example, if I go here, let me go and show you what I'm talking about. So I'll go here and I will visit the Angular website right now. So there you go. Even if I'm typing, Dr. Watson, I'm sure you can see. So when I type Angular, 19 showed up almost instantly. You see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. So this is what I was talking about. So if we go to the Angular website, here, if you go, you see that somewhere here it would be mentioned. There it is. It even, oh, looks like there's already version 20 as well, Professor. I just realized. I was just talking about my students like less than 2 months ago about Angular 19, and okay, there's Angular 20 as well. So that's really how fast things move. Professor. But as I mentioned, sir, when it comes to learning and teaching and using it and building projects, we usually go to the most recent, widely used, mature version. So 16 is the one which is currently recommended for any kind of learning and project development. So something important, so something to remember and make a note of. So normally when you're learning, stick to an earlier version. Like how do you know which one? Like why not 17? Why not 18? Why not 15 or 14? It's more like convention, professor. Like right now you're talking to me, so I'm an experienced Angular developer, so I am telling you 16 is the one which is being used in majority of the projects. So you like that, you find out which is the current version. Like again, .NET, okay, we talked about 8, but 9 is the latest. But how do you know .NET 8? Again, convention, speaking to experts, speaking to experienced developers who are actually using it in projects and so on. So I hope that is kind of a little bit clear, sir, why we use a older version. It's not about like, it's not like, oh, I need to have the latest and greatest. That may sound cool, professor, but at the end of the day, software development is about delivering reliable and bug-free services. It's not about being the latest or coolest or anything. It doesn't work that way. Like even right now, like Windows 11 is there, but a lot of people are perfectly happy with Windows 10 because they are focusing on the reliability and usability of the OS rather than the having the latest and so on. So that is why you'll see a lot of people still using Windows XP, even for example, which is so old. But again, it's all about reliability and what they're expecting in terms of community support and so on. Next, so Angular 16, of course, does support TypeScript. Now, I do occasionally mention TypeScript in many of the previous sessions, but I've never deep dived into it. I guess I probably have to do it in one of the future sessions, maybe in the next one or the one after that. I'll give an intro session on TypeScript. But for now, there is JavaScript, right? And then there is TypeScript. So they are similar. So a simple way to understand is JavaScript is like a free flowing programming language. I like to use the word Wild West. It has like a lot of flexibility and no rules and stuff like that, especially related to data types and stuff like that. Whereas TypeScript, which is from Microsoft, is built on top of JavaScript. So it's like kind of trying to discipline JavaScript. That's the best way I can explain TypeScript. So Angular uses TypeScript by default. So even this example project, which I will go into before the end of the session, I'll spend some time depending on how much time I have with all these files here. You can see here. Why is that not allowing me? Oh, there you go. I need to get rid of this. Yeah. So there you go. It has a lot of files here. I'll go deep into it depending on how much time I have at the end of the session. But the important thing is, we are using TypeScript. It is very similar to JavaScript, which we've been using since the beginning of the session. But TypeScript does have some extra features. I will go deep into it in one of the future sessions. But for now, TypeScript is JavaScript. Just think of that way. And TypeScript gives some extra features, especially related to types. We'll look into that in a future session. The next thing is the ng generate commands. Now, just to jump ahead a little bit, yeah, in the next slide, I have a list of some commands which I will talk about, and these were used to build the project. So what happens is the CLI, ultimately, any CLI command line interface will give you certain commands which will help you generate a collection of files, scripts, and default code and stuff like that. So that is, again, common with React, is common with .NET, with common with other frameworks as well. So similar facilities are available here in Angular CLI as well. So here the keyword is ng. You'll see that a lot. Again, the next slide, I'll go into it. So that's, again, is provided by Angular CLI. Now, there is something called server-side rendering. No, we are not really going into that in our current learning plan, but I've just put it there as a reference point. So server-side rendering, like right now, this is what you see. Uh, this is client-side rendering, which means whatever you see is happening on the client, which is my laptop, my browser. So that is client-side rendering, which is what Angular really was designed for. But then again, there is a demand for projects, especially enterprise projects, usually, where they are expecting something called server-side rendering, where all the rendering is done on the server side. So that is another concept. So that is supported by Angular, although it is out of syllabus as far as our discussions are concerned. Next thing is, of course, every project will have what is called as configuration files. It also has environmental variables. So we'll see that as well in our sessions. So of course, that is also supported by Angular CLI. Next thing is, now testing is a very big part of any software development. So standard testing tools like Karma, Jasmine, Jest. Now Jest is something I will be including in one of the future sessions, but there are other tools like Karma and Jasmine which are supported by Angular CLI. So, and of course, ultimately, dependency updates. So when you're working on a project, this is another thing which I'll touch upon in a future session. There's a lot to unpack here. So again, Dr. Watson, sorry if some of this is becoming too technical. I will unpack it as the sessions go, sir. But there is a lot of these packages and dependencies we use to get things done in Angular. So those packages, managing the dependencies, especially updates, is quite easy in Angular 16. So these are the key features of Angular 16. Some of them are straightforward, like for example, support for TypeScript, ng generate commands, configuration and so on. Other things like server-side rendering, out of syllabus, and obviously testing tools. We'll touch upon it at a later date, but right now it's not really a priority and so on. So this is what the Angular CLI can offer you. I will see Angular CLI in action in this session. If there's no time in this session, in the next session, we will look into that. Dr. Watson, I'm going to move on to the next slide, sir, but this was kind of like a tight slide. So if there's anything which you want me to repeat, sir, I can do so. Otherwise, I would like to go to the next
Well,
one. But this is
personally,
a,
I'm doing just fine. If
okay.
any student, any participant comes up with a question, then I'll let you know.
Oh,
I'm personally confident everything's fine.
oh, excellent, Dr. Watson. So these are all the commands. So while you guys just go through it, again, Dr. Watson, it's very hot in India right now, especially in this city. So I'm gonna drink some water, sir.
All right. Brothers and sisters, reminding you, you are with Atlantic International University, our live class session today with the Angular JavaScript with Professor J.
Yes, sir. Back to me then. Yes, thank you, Dr. Watson, for taking care of the dead air there. All right, guys. So this is where we get into the commands. So once again, now these commands, depending on the time available, I will do it either this session or we'll move it to the next session. But first step is we need to go through them and understand each of them what it does. So the first thing is, so here the main thing is, this is something we discussed in an earlier session. But if we haven't done that, then I'm going to do that right now. So please note that you need to go ahead and test this on your machine. So, when you're following along with my tutorial, not right now, obviously, when you watch the recording and everything, because as I mentioned, these sessions are packing a lot of information. So get your command prompt running on your machine. And the very first thing you want to do is check if you have Node.js installed on your computer. Okay, so you should see something like this. I'm not able to make that bigger, Dr. Watson, so you're just going to have to make it out on your own, sir. So the command is node minus v, and I think it would help. That's the one command. I didn't put it here. So let me quickly add a slide right now. So this one, let me make this one. Yes. So here, node minus v, is where you need to check the Node.js version on your computer. Okay, all right. From current slide. Okay, so that's the command node space v, and that will tell you the Node.js version on your computer. Now, normally, immediately you should get like 22 or 21 or 19. Any of those are fine. Now, if it says you don't have Node.js, then you should immediately go online and please visit, just search for Node.js and you'll see the website Node.js. I think I already touched upon this before. Just in case I haven't, let me quickly put this link in the chat box right now, in the Zoom chat box. Now, please understand, folks, Zoom chat box, it does not remember the chat session. So, oh, hold on, Professor. I'm not able to find the Zoom chat box. It's very unusual. Oh no. Hmm. There it is. I got it, Professor. Yes.
Okay.
It was an auto hide. I started panicking there a little bit. Okay, all right, folks. So there you go. I hope I'm sending it to everyone. Professor, you're able to see it, right?
Yes,
Whatever documents
yes,
I'm sending,
very
the link I'm
clearly.
sending. Okay, if you're
Yes.
seeing, then everybody's seeing it. Yes, sir. Okay, all right then. So there you go, folks. If you're not already getting the Node version on your machine, then you should first, install Node.js on your computer. But if you're following along, I'm sure you already have it. Just in case you don't have it, please make sure you have it, right? Install the latest version. Just click, click, click. I'm not going to show that right now because I already have it on my machine. Right then. So make sure you already have Node.js running on your computer. And after that, you'll be able to run all these other commands. So see here, please understand that there are two things happening here. First, the foundation level, you have Node.js, which is like the JavaScript engine. And on top of that is where you're adding the extra things that you're planning to do. So we are planning to do Angular JS, which means to do anything Angular, we need the Angular CLI. So which means before you can do any of these commands, now please notice there, Professor, you'll see there's a slight distinction. So there are some commands which start with npm, but then some commands are starting with ng. Do you see that, sir? So that is the key here. So npm is coming from Node.js, whereas ng is coming from the Angular CLI. So I'm going to make a distinction there. So npm is from Node.js, that is related to the JavaScript stuff, especially the Node.js that I'm talking about. Ng are things which are being added to your system on top of Node.js in terms of what you can do with the Angular CLI. So ng is a short form for the Angular CLI, which means the very first thing you want to do on your computer is to install the Angular CLI itself. So that is npm install -g space and then at Angular CLI 16. So again, I want to point out a common issue I face whenever I'm teaching Angular is some students, maybe by accident or maybe because the AI told them to do, they'll forget the /CLI at 16. So what happens is if you don't put that, the computer will by default install the latest version, which is 19. But as you saw just now, the latest version is now 20. So that will get installed. That's not going to help you. Okay, so you want a specific version. For my classes, I'm using Angular 16. So you want to make sure that you are installing Angular CLI 16. And here I want to add one more thing, Professor. Again, another problem I face with my students is obviously I encourage everyone to use AI because now it's pretty much part of my life. I even did a few sessions solely on how to use AI. For example, even now, Professor, if I go to my project, this is my project, the one that I showed you. This is the code. I always have AI running parallelly at any given point of time. So I use this brand, but there are so many brands, Professor. Again, we already discussed this in a previous session. So I'll not go too deep into it. So you must get attached to a one specific brand so that you get used to using it. I personally recommend, and if those of you who have attended the previous sessions, you will know that I am a user and I highly recommend the Copilot, GitHub Copilot brand of AI assistant. So again, you need to specifically tell the AI, like when you're coding, that the AI has to help you specifically with version 16. So again, I can't zoom here, Professor. You'll just have to follow along, like get a little closer there. So when you're asking for help, so normally what I do is this is what there's something called setting the context, right? So what we do is normally I just start by, hey, so I usually start by saying something like, so I know it feels weird saying hello to AI, but I'm just getting used to it, and it actually responds in a nice way. It kind of just wakes it up and get connected to your project. So there you go. It says I'm ready. The next thing what I do is I always mention like I am working on Angular 16. So this is called setting the context. A lot of students again don't do this because they're new and everything. Because there are so many versions, it's important you tell the AI clearly that you are looking for help in a specific version. So I always make sure when I'm working on a project, before I start asking questions, before I start taking help, to handle the differences in versions, I always say, hey, I'm working on Angular 16. So please make sure please make sure that your coding suggestions are tuned to Angular 16. So this is what I call setting the context. Very important when you're taking help from AI, which version you're dealing with. So make sure you do this before you start taking help, because again, one I have noticed in a lot of students, they forget to say this, and because there are so many versions, the AI does not know what version you're talking about, and it'll start suggesting things like sometimes it gives you Angular 18 code, and then suddenly it's giving you information about Angular 20 and then falls back to Angular 16. So the whole code thing becomes like a kitchen sink. So I hope that part is kind of clear there, Dr. Walson. Like again, just to these are simple things, Professor. Easy to forget, but it seems to work fine in the beginning. But as your project grows, like right now, you can see, sir, I have a very simple project, like just 3 pages. Already, I have like some 15 or 20 files already. So you can only imagine as the sessions go and the project keeps getting bigger, the amount of files that is getting generated and code is getting added. So you really need to fine tune these things today so that as the project grows bigger, your AI is able to suggest accordingly. So very important to set the context. That's the word I like to use. I don't know if that's the official word when it comes to AI usage, but for me, that's the word, set the context with your AI. So coming back then, so make sure you install CLI 16, and in addition to that, make sure you set the context with AI. Please do use AI. It's definitely, there's no way out of it now. No, it's pretty much part of every developer's life. So make sure you set the context. Next, you have the other commands like version will tell you what version of Angular CLI you have on your computer. So again, very important to check and make sure before you start a project. So let's try that right now. Again, I'm going to the command prompt. I'm going to say ng, then I'm going to say ng version. There you go. Professor, again, you can see there, sir, just below the red line, you can see 16.2.16. So again, in the bottom as well, you'll see stuff like 16.2.16 and all that. So I definitely
Yes.
have version 16 on my computer, so because that is a mature version, that is the one is suitable for project development and also for teaching. So I expect my students here in the class also to use this version. Now you will occasionally see things like this. Like I want to draw your attention to this part here where it says unsupported. Normally, you should be panicking when you see stuff like that, but not here though. Again, I'll show you one more thing. Here I have the project running left side. Okay, and if I scroll up, you'll see so many warnings, Professor. Do you see that? Like deprecated, deprecated, blue color, deprecated. Very, very common behavior with Node.js technology. So again, the first timers will always start panicking, like, hey, what is this? Oh no, it says
Mhm.
unsupported. And here it's like so many blue color deprecated warnings. Do not panic. That's very common behavior with Node.js. As of now, just ignore it. As you do more coding, you'll eventually understand why I'm asking you to ignore it. But I'll not get into that today. Right now, it's a very lengthy explanation. I'll let you figure that one out on your own. But the only thing I want to tell you is don't panic when you see stuff like deprecated. Don't panic when you see stuff like not supported or unsupported. Just trust me on that. Keep moving on. So there you go. So next command, you have this thing called ng new hello world. Now these commands we'll try later, but first I want to go through them because if I start running all the commands, the session will be over very soon and I won't be able to talk about other things. So next command is ng new hello world. This is a command used to create a new project. Now I already have a project created. So first I want to focus on showing what is already built. And then in the next session, I'll focus on how to build these things page by page. So we'll come to that later. But for now, ng new hello world is the command which is used to create a new project. So again, the whole purpose of a CLI is to help you do project related things. So before you can start coding a project, the first thing to do is to create a project. So that is where you come in with ng new hello world. Next thing is you also have npm install bootstrap. So this is something I touched upon before as well. When it comes to responsive design means, like here again, let me open my demo project. Look at this. Professor, if you look on the top, sir, you have the blue bar. Now see what happens, sir. I'm going to make it like smaller, and you'll see, sir, the blue bar has disappeared with all the navigation items, but there is a hamburger menu thing, and if I click on it, I get those icons again, and again, if I click on it, it goes away. So, and if I again make this bigger, sir, it comes back, and it becomes smaller, it goes back to being that way. So one example of a responsive design, sir. So this is where websites, when you look on a PC or something, they look different. But when you open the same website on the mobile phone, accordingly the layout changes and the content gets rearranged. So this is responsive web design. So when we are trying to do responsive web design, there are different ways of doing it, Professor. But as always, and this is something I've been speaking for many years, so like I've been doing sessions for AIU for many years now. Every time I tell all my students, you must stick to using what is called as bootstrap. So when it comes to responsive design, there are many libraries out there, but for me personally, the one that I use, you can see it right there, responsive sites. So I always recommend we use Bootstrap. I'm sure you've been hearing this for many years, Professor. I mean, we've been seeing each other for years now. So I can actually,
Yes.
yeah, say that with a sense of joy that we know each other for many years. So again, I've never changed my stance on this. There are some new libraries, like lightweight stuff and all people talk about. But I am an old school guy. I'm 40 now. I've been coding for 20 plus years. Bootstrap has been there for so many years. I'm going to stick to that, Professor. So in my classes as well, maintain that consistency. So Bootstrap, that's what you're seeing here. NPM install Bootstrap. So I will show you again how to use this in a real project. Maybe not today, but in the next session. Next, another standard command we'll be using that a lot is ng generate. So again, notice the first letter. Ng means it's a command from the CLI. NPM is a command from Node.js. So ng generate is another CLI command that is used to generate components. So what are components? We'll go into detail later. Every folder here. So the way Angular works is it creates these isolated containers. So you can see here, so you have something called home, you have something called navbar, you have something called footer. So when I go to my website, Professor, so each thing you see here, Professor, like the top thing, that's the navigation bar, nav bar. That's like a separate siloed component. The main content, sir, is a separate component. The footer, sir, is a separate component. So that's the way Angular operates. So everything you see on the website is built as separate components. So we call this, sir, separation of concern. So you know what, sir? I'm going to just put that in the chat. Very, very important. Separation of concern. Nothing to do specifically with Angular, but just in general, a programming concept, separation of concern. So what we do, sir, is when we are working on a project, whether it is back end or front end or anything, we try to build it in individual components. So that's what we mean by concern. Like here in the example project, the navigation bar is a concern. The center part where it says welcome to hello world, signals API, improved SSR, that is another concern. The footer at the bottom is another concern. So what we do is each concern is handled, maintained, created, debugged, developed separately. So why? Because if one thing stops working, or if one concern, or in this case, one component develops a problem, you can only focus on fixing that without worrying about another component. Does that make sense, Dr. Watson? The whole separation of concerns. So like I'll give an example.
Definitely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So just to add on an example, so like for example, so like as I mentioned, so like I have a phone here, which is my business number. I don't know if you can see there. So somewhere in the bottom, I have my other phone, which is my personal number. So again, I have one phone for my business stuff, like work things and so on, and I have a second phone for my personal things. So again, I'm separating the devices based on my concern. My personal things are handled by the personal number, whereas the office things are handled by the office number. Separation of concern. So if something goes wrong with this phone, only my business life is affected and my personal life just continues to run as it is. And if something goes wrong with the personal life, my business phone keeps working. Again, separation of concern. So same thing we do in software development as well, Professor. So that's what I'm talking about here, generating different components. Each component has its own set of files. So let me just quickly go into one component and explain to you what I'm talking about. So here, for example, I have the home component. I'm sorry, guys, I cannot zoom in, so you'll have to kind of stretch your eyes a little bit. So I have, for example, a file called HTML. Then in the same component, I have a file called TS, which is nothing but TypeScript. And as I mentioned, TypeScript and JavaScript, for now, please assume they're the same. And then I have the CSS file. Now, Going back to a very early sessions, you will remember that every website, front end, the fundamentals of JavaScript we talk about is always made up of three things. You have HTML, you have CSS, and you have JavaScript. In the early sessions, we used to do what is called as vanilla JS. I would use that word a lot. And I would tell that, hey, you know what, guys, eventually, after a few sessions, we're going to talk about frameworks and will not be using vanilla JS anymore. So we've reached that point now. So, but before we built a lot of projects with vanilla JS. It's there in the one sheet document as well. I know Dr. Watson was present for some of those sessions. So we have moved beyond the vanilla JS, but whether it is vanilla JS or now we are using frameworks, either way, we still have CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. Now, again, JavaScript in this case is TypeScript. So each component acts like an isolated thing with those three main things working together. So these three fundamental files get the job done, and then they are able to interact with other components in the same project to give the entire website the wholesome feeling. So that is what really each component is all about. So as and when we need a component, we use the ng generate component. Like for example, here, when I have to create a component called home, I use that command ng generate component home. Next, again, Bootstrap, because the Bootstrap thing has become so complex over the last few years, it has been split into different parts. So if I want the complete Bootstrap experience, I am forced to use the extra things, and that means I have to install them separately. So first you'll see in line number 4, I'm installing Bootstrap. Then you'll see I need to use Bootstrap icons. Okay, so again, if I go back here, I have Bootstrap, and then you see there's a section called Bootstrap icons. So these icons are like standard icons, like I think in my project, I'm using, for example, so let me just zoom in here. I can zoom in, Professor. Do you see that copyright symbol there, sir? Now, if I
Very
go to the
well.
icons, somewhere here, sir, if I say copy, you see that, sir? This is the one. This is the one. There you go. Here, sir.
Okay.
And look at my website. There you go, sir. Do you see that? This is the maximum I can zoom, Professor. So I hope you can make the connection, sir. So I have the
Yes.
copyright icon here, and then I have the same thing here. Do you see it, sir? So as you can see, Professor, these icons are tiny, tiny things. It's there and you may not even notice it. Like right now, Professor, if you look at the Zoom call right now, when you see me, sir, there's a tiny icon of a person next to my face. You may not notice that, sir, but it is there. So icons do play a very important role. Like if you look at the Zoom as well, there's an icon for microphone, there's an icon for stop video, there's an icon for chat. So we don't notice it until we start developing it. So definitely these things play a very important role, Professor. So again, that's what I'm doing here. So I need to use the icons. So again, sir, there are many, many libraries available for it. But as always, I'm old school. I'm happy with Bootstrap icons. They get the job done. They're not fancy. They're good enough for my training life, and they're good enough for a beginner. That's what these classes are for. They are JavaScript fundamentals. They're not JavaScript advanced, Professor. There's a reason behind it. So I need icons. I use npm install bootstrap icons. Next thing is there is something called as popper.js. So what is that? I'm just going to quickly show that too. So here, Professor, let me just go back to the standard size. I told you about this icon thing. So like, for example, when you click on this, like it opens up and it closes. So these things are not CSS. So that interactivity can only be done by using JavaScript. So again, Bootstrap, because it's a CSS theme, it doesn't actually contain the necessary JavaScript file. So what we have to do is we need to install that portion separately. So that is what the last line is. So that is where you call popper.js code. So to get the full Bootstrap experience in our project, these are all the things we need. So why these commands? So whatever you see right now, the demo project, I've already given the link in the Word document. And again, in the future session, I'll go ahead and pretty much build this project itself live page by page, and not line by line. That'll take hours and hours, but page by page, and show you guys how to build it. But for now, these are all the commands you would need to build this simple website. So this is impressive. At the same time, I want you to understand and appreciate how complex modern web programming has become. So it looks simple enough. All I have is a welcome page, and then a second page called about us, and then a page called contact me. There's a very simple form here. So it's a dummy form, but I made it like interactive. So I'm going to just say name. I'll just say Dr. Walson. And email address, I'll just say walson@email.com, and then I'll say, hello there, how are you? So again, it's a dummy form, but if I click on it, it does say, okay, message sent. And then if I want to, I can click on send another message, and the form is back again. Some basic interactivity. There is no back end link to the form. We will do that eventually. And of course, that is planned as part of the sessions. But for now, all we have is a very simple website with simple components and basic interactivity and basic links and so on. So even for this one, I want my students here to appreciate how much of effort goes into even building this simple thing. So these are the standard commands. Again, the recording is available. So please check them, we'll use them, of course, in the next session. I can see, of course, I knew there will not be time to use these commands today, but we'll be using it in the next session. But for now, these are the key commands, Professor. So again, before I go to the next one, sir, I want to make sure, sir, you're following along, Dr. Walson, and I'm gonna drink some water in the break, sir.
Thank you very much for that this is fairly complex, but we highly value
Yes, sir.
whatever you've done to bring that up to
Yes, sir.
our class today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We
So
have
moving on,
about
Professor.
15 minutes to go, but
Yes, sir. Some of this component, this stuff, I think the people will carry over to the next session as well, Professor. So I'll
okay.
just discuss one more thing, and then we can take the questions, Professor. So,
All right.
right then. So before we go on to the questions, so the one I want to highlight another main concept in Angular JS, the framework itself. It is the concept called modules. So this is related to the component I was talking about. Now, what happens here is, now this is our Angular project. Okay, the code, the link I've already given to you. So hopefully you will be able to at least run the project after the session. Now here, the main thing is, now whenever I'm looking at a front-end project, I tell my students to start by understanding the flow of the code. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, every piece of software is always about understanding how the flow, where is the beginning point, and where does it go wherever it is supposed to go. That is where the developer understanding comes into the picture. So to do that here, let's start. So now the main thing is, as with anything web related, everything starts at index.html. So that is where everything starts. Now this is linked to what is called as app root. Now that is going to be, every HTML file is connected to the main TypeScript file. Now you can see here, line number 3, there is something called app.module. So from index.html, we moved on to main.typescript file, and here we find line number 3, we have something called app module. Now that's what I put here in the slide. Now let's go to app module. Now where is that? So you see here, this is the root dot slash. So dot slash is the root. Now in Angular, the root is nothing but src, the source folder. So in the source folder, I'm looking for a folder called app. So inside the source, I'm going to go into app. So it's like solving a puzzle, like following the clues. And inside the app folder, I'm looking for a file called app.module. And where is that? So I go to app, and there it is, app.module. And this is where we have all the modules that are being used in the project. So you can see here all the components I talked about: the home component, navbar component, footer component, about us component, contact me component. We'll go deeper into it in the future session, but for now, I just want you to appreciate the flow right? So we reached app.module, but again, nothing much is happening here, mainly because you look at this line number 5, there is something called as the routing module, which I'm sure there you go. Routing module is the next link in the chain. So once again, so routing module is dot slash app routing module. So dot slash app dot routing module, there it is. And here you will see, we'll jump directly to line number 8. You'll see there's a path there which is empty. Now the empty path is the home path. So if I go to my website, you see here the empty path. This is the empty path. See, there's nothing after that. Slash enter. Empty path. So empty path is the home component. Are you able to make that connection there, Dr. Watson? So the empty path is the home path. Again here empty slash empty. So definitely this is what we're talking about. And that is connected to something called as the home component. Now, if I go to home, sir, which is home slash home dot component. So home, and there you go, home dot component. I'll come here, sir, and let me just quickly close this AI thing. And here, just to make my point clear before I move on to questions, sir, as always, I'm just gonna change this one to make sure we are on the right track. I'll change this to Dr. Walson. And then the next one, I'm going to change this to, hey guys, this is only the beginning of AngularJS version 16. So now if I go here, I am sure, there you go, Dr. Walson. So I know for sure we are on the right page, sir. So we're able to follow how the files are linked, Professor. It's quite complex, but
Mhm.
with practice and familiarity as we continue the session, sir, you'll figure out how these things are working. So we'll go deeper in the next section, Dr. Watson. So that is the introduction I want to give to the main module. So obviously we have to go to all these components, everything. This PPT will continue on in the next session. But yes, Dr. Watson, back to you, sir. Dr. Watson, you're on mute, sir.
It is the coding driving me a little off. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a very, very complex field. We're talking about commands in a JavaScript environment. Those are very highly and complex commands driven or intensive type of session. And there is no other way. Professor J has certainly emphasized that the key word is practice, practice, and practice. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to try something here, it doesn't work. You'll try it in another way, it doesn't work. But that's the way technology operates. You've got to deal with those mistakes and make it an objective to make sure that you focus and try to determine where the mistakes was made and go back and 70, 80, 100 times you're gonna get it at some point. We have about 10 minutes to go, brothers and sisters. I thank each and every one of you as usual for your attendance. But now the floor is entirely yours. It's time for questions. Like we said again, things were very complicated, but Ismail Adibola is ready to throw out the first question, and there is the opportunity, Ismail.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, good morning, sir.
Hi.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. The presenter, good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation, believe me. Yeah, let me go straightly to my question. Yeah, before the question, from the presentation, you mentioned about the uh, vanilla JavaScript and the code, JavaScript, and the component. So my question is tending to this direction. Now, this is a question. How does Angular's component-based architecture improve code maintainability and scalability compared to vanilla JavaScript or jQuery?
Okay. So, well, the thing is, vanilla JavaScript is primarily useful in the early days of coding, where you're building something very simple, like a one-page project, which doesn't actually, integrate with anything, like basic stuff, which is something we have done in the previous sessions. As your project grows bigger, you'll have to figure out some kind of organizing your different functions, different HTML files, different styling components. So everything, as the project grows, maintaining the code itself becomes a headache for you as a developer with vanilla JS. Let's say when you have only one page, which is taking some data from an image server or something, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't need a framework for that. But when you are building a proper website, like even here, uh, just to have 3 pages. And if I have to do this in vanilla JS, that would be 3 HTML files with their own separate JavaScript files and styling files. So everything becomes like a separate thing that I have to maintain. So when it grows to become like say 100 or 200 pages, which is very common with any project, maintaining it becomes a problem. So we don't use vanilla JS for anything beyond early stage learning things. Now what happens with Angular is it takes care of the component management. Now, for example, every time I add a component, it is automatically treated as a module and it becomes available in the app module, which you can see here. So let's say I have a navbar. Now I only have to create the navbar component once. And you can see that the same navbar, no matter where I go, you can see it, right? Like I go to a professor.
I have unmuted
Oh,
you.
oh,
Okay, there we go.
when did I become mute, sir? Did you miss the whole thing or?
No, oh, there is a noise. Oh, apparently it is coming from your end. I was trying to avoid background noise, but go
Oh,
ahead.
oh,
Since we don't have too
yeah,
much time, I thought it was from
yeah.
somebody else.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, yes, sir. So
go
what
ahead.
I was saying was, so even this simple project, I have the nav bar and I'm able to use the same nav bar across different pages. And stuff like this is only possible when you use the frameworks such as Angular JS. So which means as your project grows, these components can be shared and hence you get reusability. And because they are individual components, maintainability is given. It can be taken for granted and all the other things you just mentioned. So yeah, vanilla JS is good for things, but obviously once you start building a web app, you must get into a framework. And also let's not forget, so again, for example, early right away in the beginning, I mentioned that I want to use Bootstrap. So if you're using Bootstrap in vanilla JS, again, you'll have to manage how you're going to add Bootstrap to all the pages. But in Angular, because it's a framework, you just add it once and it's available throughout the entire project.
Right.
So again, that's why we use the whole framework thing. I hope that answers the question, Dr. Moss.
Thank you very much, Jay. Cesar Jules, what do you have? Cesar Jules.
Okay, thank you. I just follow up the 6 step of Angular command line interface installation. And I got a error message on the component, generate component home, which is this command is not available when running the Angular CLI outside a workspace on my command line, we know command line. I don't know how to solve fix this problem. If not, I succeed installing all the other command, install the Angular CLI and so on, but only for the component, I got this error message.
Right, right. So one, I will be showing how to use the CLI in the next session. But since you're already trying it out, please remember that you have to be inside the project to run any of those commands. So just to show you, like right now, you'll see that I actually have two VS Code windows open. See, I have this window where I run the create command, which is new. But whenever I want to run the Angular command, I go inside the project. So the command that you're saying, make sure you are inside the project folder. So for example, I go here, but again, I'll be showing how to use the commands in the next session. But since you're already trying, just to take a quick, so this is the command, right? So ng, hold on, yeah. So let's go here, ng generate. So I'm just gonna take this command, okay, and I'll come inside the project. Key thing is, see here, I am inside the project. So I'm gonna paste it. I already have home, so I'm just gonna call this one home 2. I press enter, there you go. It's running without any errors.
Maybe I mistaken because I run the command on the Windows command line.
Oh, you didn't miss anything, but we haven't reached that
VS
stage
Code.
yet.
I have a VS Code. I was supposed to go there because I have Laravel. I installed Laravel project, Laravel platform for JavaScript editing and create project. I think it's the same way we create the Angular client interface. It's the same way because you install first the programming language and you create a project and you go inside the VS Code with the VS Code editor that I have everything, but I'm mistaken to go to Windows command line. That's
no problem.
Maybe. I will go inside the VS Code. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. I'll be going deeper with the commands, actual commands in the next session. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question and your comments as well, Cece Jules. We are in super good hands as Jay has taken the time to go through all the details to provide to Cece Jules. Looking around, I don't see any other hand up. The chat box also, for whatever reason, is not I don't know, functioning today because I haven't seen any reactions from the participants, and that's very unusual. People usually get very, very active in there. We don't know exactly what's going on, but let's grant another opportunity to ask another question maybe to Ismail Adebola, and that's gonna be apparently the last question. We are ready. The floor is yours, Adebola.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Trying to stop my alarm. All right. Second, sir. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, let me proceed. The second question is this. Sir, you mentioned about commands during the presentation. You mentioned about the standard. Can you keep quiet? I'm sorry, Emmanuel,
Leave him alone, Ismael. He's a little boy, a little girl.
can you see what I'm passing through, sir? Your mom is just at the door now. She just came, but you have been troubling me. I'm sorry. All
Put
right.
it on your lap.
Okay, sir. Let me proceed. Take this key and open for your mom. Yeah. I'm sorry for the distraction.
That is part of the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why we are one single family. We are all together, supporting each other.
Okay, sir. So, sir, you mentioned about commands, perhaps Angular commands. You first mentioned command line interface. Then you mentioned about the standard command. So my question is this. I really want to know the actual one that is recommended. But let me go ahead with the question. How can Angular fixtures be leveraged to enhance user experiences in a Hello World application? Also, what best practices could be recommended for maintaining responsiveness?
Okay.
Okay. So it seems like both the questions are, to me at least, they seem like the same question. So in terms of responsiveness, the answer is straightforward. I'll just go to any of my component because all my components are following the same policy. So for example, if I go to the home component, I write my content in the HTML file as expected, and I make sure that whatever CSS, you'll see that my CSS files are actually empty. Now this is something I do in all my projects. Even for my client projects, I avoid writing my own CSS. So as much as possible, I do only the CSS, or I use only those CSS things which are provided by Bootstrap. So you can see here, I'm doing a lot of styling every line, but I don't use my own custom CSS. So to answer your question, to maintain that consistency, I would highly recommend you stick to the readily available Bootstrap classes for everything. Now, that will make your website look a little bit simple, and it's not like fancy and stuff like that. But at the same time, after having worked on so many client and enterprise projects, the fancy stuff is really, overrated. So what you want is something that works and is, minimum level of pleasing to the eyes. So my answer to your question is, please go ahead and stick to the ready-made classes and utilities available in Bootstrap. So that way, every project will at least have two developers. A solo developer eventually will grow and take a help of another developer. So when everybody is using a standard framework, there is less chance of something going wrong. And that also answers your first question in terms of leveraging Angular features, which means, like again, going back to this one, when you're using Angular, when you want something, you add it as a dependency. You see here, I'm in the package.json file. So if I want Bootstrap, I add Bootstrap. And if tomorrow I start using some other library, again, I add it as a dependency. So Angular will help you leverage these features to add on extra things in a standardized way. For example, Bootstrap. So that's really the best answer I can come up with for your question, my friend.
Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. That has brought us to the end of this wonderful, magnificent class session at Atlantic International University. And as you know, your attendance was key to the overall success of this presentation. Of course, we relied heavily on our presenter, J. Bachahally, Wada Christian Vijaya Simha, Professor J. But your participation, whether you ask questions or not, that involvement was also fundamental. And I thank you very much on behalf of the whole family of Atlantic International University. We're gonna get ready to shout thank you to Professor J. But right before we do that, let's hear him again in a conclusion, if you will, Professor J.
Thank you, Dr. Watson, sir. As promised, sir, once again, I just want to send that one sheet document because I know that in the beginning, not everyone would be online. So once again, folks, please remember, I'm sure you'll get this copy from the school as well, but remember the Zoom chat goes away if after the Zoom chat is over. So please go ahead and let me just close this one here. Yeah, this is the file. I need to close this before I send it. One second. So please download the copy before the Zoom ends. So don't download it right now, the one sheet document, which has links. For example, this project I'm showing you, that code is already available in the GitHub. So that's, please download it right away because the Zoom chats are not stored. So yes, coming back here as always, Professor. Oh, sorry, Professor. Yeah. So as always, I have in the on-sheet document. I have the YouTube channel where I have made all the basic videos, programming. I have the GitHub link. There's a GitHub discussion forum. Every now and then, I think Jules shows up in the support discussion forum. I've seen him there quite often. And again, demo projects and all that is available. I usually reply within 24 hours to the best of my ability. And that's all there is to it from me, Professor. So yes, sir. Back to you, sir.